Hey y'all, welcome to Pleiadian Point of View. I'm Peyton, and I'm a Pleiadian channel and starseed coach. So in today's video, the P's are going to talk to us a little bit about powerlessness. This is something they see that a lot of us are feeling right now, especially as things start to get a little sticky in our outside world. So the P's want to talk to you a little bit today about how to reclaim your power if you're someone who's been getting a little freaked out by what's going on around you. But before we jump in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button if you haven't done that yet. Now, most of us know that as we look around at our external reality right now, things have gotten a little sticky. And the more we look around at the world around us, the easier it is to get freaked out. There's just a lot going on to process, and a lot of it seems to put us in fear, in anger, in powerlessness. So the P's wanted to offer us today a little perspective shift to help you out if you're someone who's been getting a little discouraged by what you see going on in the world. Now, one thing that can happen as we see all the drama in the world around us is it's very easy for us to get into fear and judgment, to see these scary stories, these scary narratives that are being sold, and to feel powerless, like something can happen to us. Something is going to get us, something is going to hurt us. This is a very natural response to what we're seeing in the world around us right now. But the P's always like to bring us back to the energetic basics, to remind us that everything in our external reality is our creation. It's our energy. So just take, for example, something you've seen in the world recently that has triggered you. And there's lots of choices. So just pick something that feels too big for you to handle or manage as one little light worker. And once you have that issue that is in your mind, imagine that that thing is your creation, that you made it, you created it to give yourself a little test to see if you could get yourself to buy into it. Because an interesting thing happens as we look at what's going on in the world and we claim it as our own. We flip the system on its head because the entire system that we have come through, the 3D system that most of us have spent a lot of our lives in, was all based on separation, right? That was the 3D name of the game. We had the ego mind as the king of the kingdom that was telling us that everything was separate from us. Every person was separate from us. Everything in the external reality was separate from us. We had no control over it. It was a system of us versus them. And because of that, training and conditioning of the ego mind, we viewed everything as a threat. Everything was other than us because that was how the 3D game worked. That was what the whole ego mind system was designed to do. But as we're moving into 5D energies, we're starting to look at things from a higher, broader perspective. And one of the things the P's have been telling us for years now is that we created all of it. The whole idea of separation is the 3D illusion. That is the 3D game. So from a 3D perspective, what we would do naturally as humans is look at things happening in the world and get very fearful because we thought that thing could get us. It could hurt us, that it was created by someone else that was going to be imposed on us. Right? That was how the 3D world worked. That's why we felt so powerless, why we felt like things were out of our control, like we felt enslaved, is because we thought things could be imposed on us from the outside. But as we start to raise our frequency, work more and more with the 5D energies that are available to us now, we're starting to look at things from a different perspective. And the way the P's have been teaching us to do this is to have us look at everything in our reality as us. They like to say everything is you. You created it. So if there is something out there, that out there was created by you. And so as we start to look at some of these scary toys in the world around us, those narratives, those institutions that are doing shady things, you name it, the people that we see that are acting out right now, if rather than looking at those things, getting into fear, getting into judgment, making them wrong, if instead we look at those from a different perspective, through a different lens, and say, that is me, an interesting thing happens. You'll feel a whole shift in how you look at that thing. Because if you are looking at something big in the outside world and you're thinking you have no control over it, that you are at the mercy of it, that it can affect you, that is what happens when we're in the game of separation. We are in the ego mind, which is all about making you separate from that thing. But if we shift our perspective and look at it from the perspective of our higher self, we claim that thing. So rather than pushing against it, making it wrong, making it bad, judging it, being scared of it, if instead we look at that same thing and we claim it, we flip everything on its head. We take ourselves out of separation with it. When you look at that scary story and you're like, I created that, that is me, what happens is you reclaim your sovereignty because you're taking responsibility for your creation. And an interesting thing happens as you make that tiny little shift in perspective is you take yourself out of fear with it because you realize if something is you, if something is your creation, something is your energy, there's no need to be afraid of it because you can always change it. It's only when we are keeping ourselves separate from things that we cut ourselves off from our sense of power. Because when you are thinking there is something out there that's not you, you're thinking something can get to you. But when you look at that same thing and you reclaim it, you're like, that is me. All of a sudden, you're not afraid of that thing anymore. Because why would you be afraid of you? If you created it, you can uncreate it. Now, how do we do that? Well, as the P's always tell us, the best way to release our resistance to something, and fear is nothing but resistance, the best way to release our resistance to something is to merge with it, to bring it into your heart. And you've heard them talk about this for years now, right? When you bring that scary thing, that news story, that thing that you saw on social media that set your hair on fire, when you bring that thing into your heart, when you sit with it and claim it as your creation, it's like you take all the fuel out of the fire because you are reuniting a piece of your energy. When we hold ourselves in judgment of something, when we are afraid of something or mad at something or judging something, we're separating ourselves from our creation, from our energy. And this is just the 3D way of doing things. This is how we have been programmed as humans. And so we're having a chance now to dissolve that. But as long as we are looking at something as being separate from us, we stay in the 3D game. But when you look at that same thing, and this applies whether it's a story you're hearing, whether it's something that has happened in the world, some sort of event, or someone that you're looking at who is behaving badly, right? When you bring that reflection, whatever it is, into your heart, you reclaim your energy. You break down the separation. And as you do that, you bring back a part of your energy that has been broken off. And once you merge with something, you start to dissolve the fear energy around it because you're essentially, by bringing it into your heart and sending it love, you're acknowledging it as your creation. And as you do that, you start to break down all the resistance around it. You start to break down the fear around that story. You start to break down the anger you may have had around that story. But we have to acknowledge our creation. And when we are judging something, we are keeping it separate. So as you hear those scary things that are going on, or you start to see people acting out in negative ways, if instead of judging them, getting into fear that they're going to do something to you, or getting into anger with them, if instead you bring them into your heart, you acknowledge that they are part of your creation. Because anything in your reality is you. It's your energy. You created it. You put it there as a little test to see how you would react to it. And as long as we are reacting negatively, getting into judgment, anger, fear, we're keeping the separation. And all that means is we're staying in a 3D energy with it. And as we do that, we create more of it. But if instead we flip that on its head and we accept responsibility for our creation, then what happens is you break down the resistance around it. And as you do that, there's no need for the universe to reflect it to you because you're not a match to it anymore. You're only a match to that negative reflection when you are responding negatively to it. So it's all you. So when you take that scary thing that you saw, that story that's gotten you a little fired up for the day, and instead of letting yourself go down that rabbit hole of fear and anger, if instead you reclaim that, you take back your power. You're reclaiming that as part of you, as your creation. As you do, you dissolve the negative energy around it. You integrate the energy. And what happens is it starts to fade from your existence because you're not sending out the signal of fighting with it. Once you accept it, you accept responsibility, you start to dissolve the form of the manifestation. So this is one way that we can start to reshape our thinking on, some of this acting out we're seeing in the world around us, some of the really scary stuff that is going on. When we start to claim ownership of it, take responsibility for it as the creator of our entire quantum reality, because you are that powerful, you created it all, then we start to break down the resistance and it starts to fade from our experience because you're no longer an energetic match to it. So this is one way you can start to take back your power if you've been feeling a little powerless lately. The way we get into feeling powerless is when we don't acknowledge that something is our creation, because then we are giving our power to someone else. But this is a simple way that we can start to reframe that by taking responsibility for everything, good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all you. So that is what the P's wanted to share with us in today's POV. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and the like button if you haven't done that yet. And as always, if you want to work one-on-one with the P's, I will leave the link to do that in the description box. I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.